Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to the Daily Six. Grab your Bible, Ruth chapter 2. We're going to continue this amazing story of Ruth and Naomi and Boaz and see how it all interconnects to Jesus Christ. Ruth chapter 2, come on with me. So Ruth was a young widow supporting her elderly mother-in-law, Naomi, who was also a widow. And we've learned the last couple of days how widows in Israel didn't really have a way to provide for themselves. They were poverty-stricken, filled with fear, wondering how it was they were going to provide for their family. But part of the law of God provided that folks in poverty could do what was called gleaning. They could go into the farm fields that had been harvested, go behind those who had completed their harvesting, and they could pick up behind them grain that had been left behind. So Ruth, in her ingenuity and Naomi's ingenuity, she went to go glean from the field, and it turned out to be a field owned by one of Naomi's relatives, Boaz. And we read yesterday how God blessed Ruth with favor in the eyes of Boaz. Not every farmer was keen on these gleaners that would come behind them. It'd be a bit of a distraction to their workers. But Boaz gave Ruth favor. He let her follow in behind his workers and even provided for water to drink. Part of this is that he had understood what Ruth had done for Naomi. So, in chapter 2 of Ruth, verse 12, Boaz said to her, "May the Lord repay you for what you've done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Ruth had come to take refuge in the hands of our God, who is faithful and who will provide for us. In verse 14 of Ruth chapter 2, records that at mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here, have some bread, dip it in the wine vinegar." And she sat down with the harvesters, and he offered her some roasted grain. And she ate all that she wanted and had some left over. And as she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, "Even if she gathers among the sheaves, don't embarrass her. Rather, pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her." This is really a unique thing that the farmers, as I'd mentioned, they weren't always that keen on these gleaners. But Boaz tells his men, listen, as you go and as you pull up a few extra stalks, leave them lay there for her. Do a little extra for her. Let her, in fact, kind of drift in amongst those who are, in fact, doing the official work of harvesting. He's blessing her. He gives her a meal. Verse 17, so Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. And then she threshed the barley she'd gathered. It amounted to about an ephah, and she carried it back into town. And her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. And Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she'd eaten enough. Now her mother-in-law is amazed at how much she's brought home. She asked her, "Where was it you gleaned today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." And then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one at whose place she'd been working. "The name of the man I worked with today is Boaz," she said. Remember earlier we read the text yesterday that it just turned out that she was gleaning in the field of a relative, Naomi's, Boaz? This wasn't something they'd planned. Ruth just went out looking for a place to glean. And it turned out by the leadership of the Lord that she was in a relative's field. And Naomi is stunned. In verse 20, she says, "Oh, the Lord bless him. He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and to the dead." And she added, "That man is our close relative. He is one of our Kinsman-Redeemers." Friends, that phrase may not mean that much to you or to me, but it is an incredibly important moment. God has revealed himself in his providence for Ruth and Naomi. You see, the concept of a kinsman-redeemer, we could find it in Deuteronomy chapter 25. It's a part of the law that God gave the Israelites, that whenever a married man dies without having given birth to a son, Deuteronomy chapter 25 tells us that if brothers are living together and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother shall take her and marry her and fulfill the duty of her brother-in-law to her. And the first son she bears shall carry on the name of the dead, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. Oh, friends, I hope you see God's provision here. It just happened that she gleaned in the field of Boaz, who legally is what is called a kinsman-redeemer, one who is a close relative who bears the responsibility to provide for her. And if he's unmarried and if he's willing, that he should take her as his wife. A foreshadow of what's coming tomorrow right here on the Daily Six. But before we go, I wonder if you could give God 6 more minutes and contemplate what it might mean for God to allow Ruth to stumble into this relationship, this kinsman-redeemer. Oh, and one more thought. The Hebrew word for kinsman-redeemer, it's all throughout the law of God. It has a parallel to who Jesus Christ is for you and me. In fact, the Hebrew word kinsman-redeemer can also be translated avenger, one who will avenge some wrong that's been done. And isn't that exactly what Jesus Christ does for you and me? That he has a responsibility in our spiritual orphanhood, our spiritual widowhood, that we've been separated from God by our sin, that Jesus Christ, our Redeemer, goes and avenges that brokenness, and he provides for us. Oh, friends, can you give God 6 more minutes? And can you think about, contemplate, worship God for what it means that Jesus Christ is our kinsman redeemer, the one who avenges our separation from God, our spiritual poverty, just the way as Boaz has been set up to redeem Ruth in her young, impoverished widowhood. Oh, friends, give God 6 more minutes, worship him, pray about that, and coming back tomorrow, we'll see what's been foreshadowed right here in the book of Ruth. We'll see you tomorrow right here on the Daily Six.